Welcome back to Weave Along with Elewys. I'm Elewys of Finching Field. First of all, I'd like to say, sorry I've been away for a while. I did get sick over Thanksgiving, which is third week of November. I'm fine now, obviously. And I sounded like a trucker that's been smoking for 40 years. So that's not something I want to put on videotape, ever. And once I recovered from that, then it was the holidays, and then it was New Year's, and then it was 12th night, and then it was getting ready for Ursumas, and suddenly I went, it's February. So what I wanted to share with you today is a little bit about how to do brocade card weaving. This is something that I promised I would be teaching you, and here I am, ready to dive in. I'd put it off for a very long time because, frankly, I was a little intimidated by it, but I tried it. It's slow going. It's really not that hard. A lot of the extant tablet weaving pieces that you find were done in this technique. Several of the patterns that I've featured on this channel were done in this technique. The Dublin Dragons, the Roger of Sicily, Brocade 2, 6, 12, 21, 22, yeah, like all of them. So if you have always wanted to learn how to do brocade card weaving, I'm going to show you how I did it. So the first thing I did is I took a sketch from the Brocade 2F, the one I did as a threaded in weave in a previous video, and using grid paper, I figured out how many cards I would need for the pattern. One column equals one card, and each card is threaded with 4 threads of the same color. In this case, the pattern is 9 cards wide, plus 2 border cards on each side, so 13 cards total for this weave. Then I marked where the brocade would go over and under in the weave structure. I used a ruler to keep track of the rows, and I marked out the pattern. What I chose to do was the dark squares were the background, the blue, and the rest were the foreground, or the silver. You could just as easily do the reverse, but if what you're going to weave is something shiny, you want it to shine as much as possible. It seems that that was the thought process of the weavers in the Middle Ages, so we'll just lean into that, shall we? The first thing that you're going to notice is that there has been a little bit of tablet weaving already done on this warp. These are all my experiments, trying to figure out how it was done and what it should look like. But I've advanced the warp, and I'm going to show you how it's done from the beginning, as if you had just warped your loom. The cards were all threaded, and those 13 cards are threaded S and Z. So this one is Z threaded, this one's S threaded. Z, S, Z, S, all the way across. So all the stitching will appear kind of zigzag all the way across as you weave forward. So I'm going to move the cards out of the way. I've got my shuttle with just a little bit of thread left on it. Again, I set this up as an experiment to see how it would work. I'm going to start with a long tail hanging out on the right, shuttle on the left. I'm going to turn the cards forward. Send the shuttle through and the tail back. Turn the cards forward. Shuttle to the left. Tail to the right. Turn the cards forward. I'm going to beat it just a little bit to get things settled in there. Shuttle to the right, tail to the left. Then I'm going to pull the tail out of the way because we're not going to need it any further. Leave that little loop behind. You can see there's a little bit of looseness here at the beginning. That's okay. Chances are nobody's going to see it anyway. If you use it for a belt, you can, of course, go back and tighten those up after. And we're just going to turn a few times just to establish a base of weaving before we start doing the brocade. This is the nice meditative part. All right, we've got about 1/2 inch. I'll go just a little bit further. Okay, so we have about 3/4 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters of weaving done so far, and that's probably going to be enough for you to get started on the brocade. So I experimented with a few different things to do the brocade with. The first thing I did was just use some more of the cotton floss. This is the Maysville 8/4, so it's a little bit heavier, and that seemed to work pretty well. This is the Maurice Broussard 8/2, so it's about half the weight. You'll have to experiment a little bit about how heavy of the brocade thread you want to use. There are different things that you can use for your brocade threads. What I decided to try, just as an experiment, was getting some of this silver DMC type floss. And amazingly enough, this stuff actually turns out looking pretty nice for being, you know, cheap, synthetic, metal. You know, it's not bad. Adds a little shininess. It's pretty easy to work with, and it was super inexpensive. If you're going for a particular look and you don't have the budget to buy the actual silver wire, I think this is a perfectly acceptable substitution. So I tried a couple of different experiments. First, I tried using half of the threads, because like most embroidery floss, it has 6 threads twisted together. But I tried 3 threads, and it didn't look really good. So I went back to using all 6 threads, and it looks much better. Starting with the pattern, you see I've drawn out the pattern on this grid paper, and I've kind of outlined where the cards are. So these are cards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way across. And because all the cards are threaded the same way with the same color, you don't need to worry about whether AD is at the top when you start this pattern. You can start literally anywhere. So I've gotten a second shuttle, and I put all of the shiny silver stuff onto this second shuttle. Okay, so I've trimmed the ends here so that they're all the same length. I'm going to put the shuttle through, but I don't want the silver to show up on the side of the weaving, so I'm going to dive down behind the last 2 cards. So I'm going to pull those 2 cards out, grabbing those bottom threads, and I'm going to go down behind. I'm going to carefully pull it forward so the threads are buried, or mostly buried. I'm going to turn the cards. I'm going to set the shiny shuttle aside. I'm going to run, we're going to call this the ground weft. So I'm going to pull the ground weft through. Leave that loop behind. And then, like we did before, we're going to skip these first 2 cards, go through the middle, and then skip the last 2 cards. I'm going to pull those aside, and it's going to go down behind them. I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to tug this just a tiny bit so the threads are buried. Okay, we're going to do this one more time so the shuttle starts on the other side. Ground weft, pull the loop, leave the loop behind, pull out those border cards. We'll go up, go behind all of the threads, and then dive down behind those other cards. I'm going to pull that weft tight. So what you'll see, and you can see it demonstrated here on the bottom, is you're going to have a line of shiny stitching on the back. So you don't end up with the shiny bits on the edge of the cards, they'll be on the back side. And we've started establishing that there. Does that make sense? Are you with me so far? I hope so. We're going to turn the cards again. I'm going to take our ground weft, beat, pull that loop, pull it through, and now we're going to start our pattern. We're going to first pull our border cards aside. No, the first 2 cards of the pattern we're going to go over. So we'll 1, 2 cards over and under 1, and then over 3, 1, 2, 3, and under 1, over the last 2 cards, and then skipping those border cards. So just having your fingers in the middle there will help a lot. Holding that open, you feed your shuttle through, and you can see where the shiny weft is showing through. Okay, I'm going to turn the cards again. Take our ground weft, and we're going to beat all of this down. Now, I think I'm going to need to tug that just a little bit to get it to lay flat. Pull the loop, leave that loop behind, and now we're going to go with pick number 2. So we're going to skip those first 2 like we've done before. We're going to go over 1, under 1, that'll leave the blue showing, over 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, under 1, over 1, and then diving down behind those last 2 cards. Pull it a little snug, not too snug because you don't want to put a lot of tension on it, so just lightly pull. Turn the cards, and then we'll beat all that down. Pull that loop, leave the loop behind, give that a little tug, and you can see we're already starting to see that little pattern. Move the pattern up, skip 2 cards, and then we're going to go under 1, over 3, under 1, over 3, under 1, and diving down behind. Turn the cards, ground weft, beat, pull that loop, tighten your brocade a little. You want to beat it down really firmly. I have to think about this. So over 3, under 1, over 1, under 1, yeah, over 3, and then skip the border cards. Gotta be careful that your loops don't tangle around each other. Tug, tug, tug. Turn. Beat firmly. Pull the blue. Pull the brocade weft. Beat again. Pull it through. Tug, tug. Smooth it out. There you go. Next pick. I've lost count of the picks now. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it'll be 5. Skip the border cards. Over 2, under 1, over 3, under 1, over 2, and skip the borders. Again, you don't want to pull too tight on that brocade, she says to herself, warningly. Beat, pull, gently pull, get it all smoothed out. Beat again if you have to. Next pick. Border cards, over 3, under 1, over 1, under 1, over 3, and diving down. It's a terrible noise, isn't it? Yeah. Some people might like it. Next pick. Skip the borders. Let's see, under 1, over 3, under 1, over 3, under 1, and dive her down. Anybody ever done any scuba diving? I didn't. I did a little snuba. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of snuba. It's like scuba diving and snorkeling. Basically, you buddy up with a qualified scuba diver, and they're your guide, I guess, as a snuba diver. I had a hard time getting my ears to equalize, though, so it was a very painful day. Also my birthday, so fun fact. I much prefer snorkeling. Oh, it looks so nice already. Okay, next row, next pick. Skip those border cards. Over, oh, this is easy. Under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, and then down. Gonna throw that weft shuttle through. The shiny, like Pokemon, shiny. Turn the cards. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think I'm ready for lunch. Yep, it's about that time. I'm gonna pull that through, leave the loop, tighten gently. I already turned the cards. Next pick. Skip those border cards. Over 2, under 1, over 3, under 1, over 2, and dive down. So if you have gone scuba diving, where is your favorite place? I did a little in, it was the Bahamas, where I was trying to do the snuba thing. It was a long time ago. And I've done some snorkeling in Hawaii, and that was amazing. My husband did some scuba diving in the Maldives. He lived overseas, and he got to do all these really amazing interim trips, you know, like the spring break and midwinter break trips. And he went all over the place in Asia. He went to Japan, and he went to the Maldives, and he went to Singapore and some other places. Just what an experience. All right, next pick. going to go, oh, we're going to alternate again. Over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over, and down. Throw the shiny shuttle. Turn, beat, pull, leave, straighten out, next pick, let's see, under, over 3, under 1, over 3, under 1, and diving down. So once you get into the rhythm of this, you really find that it's not more difficult. It is slower, obviously, because you're doing 2 picks at a time. You know, so you're doing the plain weave and doing the decorative weave. But it's, once you get into the rhythm of things, it's not that difficult, and it really has an amazing look when you're done. Again, you got to press really hard to get that nested in there. The bird's going to interrupt me on every line, and it's going to mess me up.